It's time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by
PSE Archery, Yamaha Outboards, Better the Hunt, Easy Cut, Packer Max, Deer Camp Coffee, Buck Baits, JPO Game Calls, Limwalker Game Calls, Wild Seasoning, Total Peep, Sunrise Archery, Scent Lock, and Scent Blocker.
Well, guys and gals, we made it on. No thanks to Facebook again. The whole interface has just changed completely.
They wouldn't do that to us. Come on now.
All settings were blown out. It only took about 5 minutes to fix, so...
Could have been worse.
Don't say that. We haven't got through the night yet.
Don't worry. We've got one of the super more excited guests we've had on the show in a long time.
All right.
He's just waiting in the wings, in the mountains.
That's where I wish I was at right now.
Right?
Well, I tell you what. Why don't we just go ahead and just get started?
Why don't we?
All right, here we go. Stand by in 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal, everybody. I'm host Mike Adams, sitting in the cabin tonight with Dan DeFall on a wet and dreary, rainy Thursday evening and rainy week, what have you, however you want to call it. It's been bad.
It's been rainy all week.
It's been very, very bad.
Wait, when did I... Monday afternoon, I ran out to cut the grass just before it started raining, and it hasn't stopped raining since.
Right?
So I was like, I got to cut this grass or else I'm going to need a combine.
Yeah, it's been horrible.
I know, right?
I got water standing in the backyard and don't know where it's going to go, but it's not good. I can tell you that right now.
You got standing water back there?
Oh, I got a pond back there.
Really?
It's bad.
I thought you had a drain back there.
I do. Like I said, it's bad.
Well, okay.
It's horrible.
Wow.
Be that it may, but it is what it is. So,
right.
But I tell you what, why don't we go ahead and get through the people here that help support us?
Let's do that. And I tell you what, we're going to start off with none other than Buck Baits. Folks, here in Michigan, the official bow season starts next week, October 1st. Obviously, some other seasons have already taken off. And elk season has begun. Great video from Jennifer. But get over to buckbaits.com. Get 20% off your order when you check out using the promo code UNJ20. So go over there and check them out. Packer Max. There's nothing better than getting your
fall food plots?
Thank you. Fall food plots put in. And there's no way you can't do it without the Packer Max. So get over there. Get over to... I can't get my thing to...
You can look at it right here on my screen.
UNJ25 for $25 off your order at packermax.com. Give Lincoln Roan a call. UNJ10 with JPO Game Calls. You heard them last week on the show. Get your grunt tube, your squirrel call, anything you want. Go over there and check them out. 10% off. UNJ10, JPOGameCalls.com. Another 10% off from Wild Seasonings. After you shoot it, kill it, skin it, grill it, you got to put some seasoning on it.
I used a mango habanero this week.
How was it?
I just about lit my stomach on fire.
Really?
I used way too much.
Oops. So UNJ 2021 gets you 10% off your order over there. You having cold brew?
Yes, I am.
There's nothing better than having Deer Camp Coffee. DeerCampCoffee.com. Use the promo code UNJ10 and get 10% off your order. And what are you drinking?
This is just the standard.
Okay.
Well hanger, I do believe.
Gotcha.
And I threw a little bit of vanilla in it tonight.
Nice.
Speaking of Deer Camp Coffee and Buck Baits, I do see that Jennifer Drake is on.
Yes.
Big shout out to her from Drake's Outfitting and Guiding Services up there in northern Michigan. I seen they took down a big bull elk this week.
They did, and she's got it on video.
We'll have to show that here at some other time. Speaking of elk hunting, let's go ahead and just get into it. Introduce our guest tonight. We have got none other than Randy Stoppenhagen on from Napa, Idaho. What is going on, Randy?
Not much, guys. I just want you to know I came down off the mountain during elk hunting season just to talk with you, but actually it's because it's my wife's birthday.
I was gonna say I don't believe that for 1 minute.
Yeah, you had us at for just for you guys.
Yeah.
Nobody does anything just for us.
Oh.
So how's things out there in Idaho?
Well, I tell you, the first part of the season, actually the weather here is dry. I wish we had some of your moisture. It's been dry, warm. In the last week, it did get cooler. Up on the mountain in the morning, it's 38, 42 degrees, but during the day, it's warming up into the 70s. Wish it was in the 60s. First part of the season, the elk would volunteer bugle, which was nice because you could locate them. But they're just gun shy about coming to calls. And then they went silent. It seems like just before the rut kicks in and they start screaming, they tend to want to go silent. Like, I'm a bull over here, and I don't want that bull to know that I'm here with a couple cows. So it's just real quiet, but eventually nature is going to take over, and those bulls are just going to want to scream, and the rut will kick in, and then it'll be game on.
So is that kind of like more of a nature thing? You say they go silent, so they've got a couple ladies with them, and they're entertaining them, and it's like I don't want anybody coming down here to fight me for them, so I'm gonna tend to my few, and then when things get done with that, maybe they start screaming. Is that when they start screaming and looking for more ladies?
Well, or with the testosterone that's running in them, the satellite bulls, the younger ones, the 5x5s, the 4x4s, they feel like they've got to do something, and the older ones know that it's breeding season, so they just can't resist anymore. So they'll try to come in and steal a cow, and that bull will finally pipe off to tell them, "Hey, leave me alone." And then the satellites will start screaming. But up till then, that herd bull does not want to be bothered with, and the cows don't really want to be bothered with. So a prime example, the other evening, my elk hunting partner, Matthew, and my friend Nick, who's with Full Range Hanging System, he came out this year again, and they went off in a different direction, and I went off to sit in a saddle. And by saddle, I mean a saddle between the mountains, not a horse saddle. But anyway, besides that. So anyway, those two went up a logging road, and they got to a spot, and Nick said, "Hey, this looks like a great place to set up and call." And it wasn't, and they, of course, are whispering, and it wasn't maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds later, a bull about 150 yards or so up the hill, just real quiet. I mean, he wants to bugle because he feels that urge, and this is what it's all about, but he does not want to give away his location to other bulls that might come in and steal his or start working with him to try to get his cow. So, and then Matthew took off up the hill, Nick backed up a little bit and started cow calling. The bull wasn't necessarily interested in the cow calling because he didn't want to leave the few he had. Matthew got up the hill, and without exactly pinpointing where that elk was, he actually got up right to their level, and he wasn't very far away, and he heard the bull, just making real quiet sounds, and the cows were milling around, real quiet. I mean, real quiet, like they were whispering to each other. And Nick's down the hill calling. Well, all of a sudden, a cow came out, and Matthew saw it, and the bull, he could never locate the bull. But that's the scenario that we're in right now. Now, eventually that's going to switch, where you could go up the hill and start raking a tree, or you could, bugle at him, and he's not going to stand that, because now it's game on. The cows are now in estrus, and he's going to be danged if another bull's going to come in and steal his cows. So then it's game on. But like Nick said, I'm not a huge turkey hunter, but he is. It's like turkey hunting. Until you get that turkey to gobble, you really don't know where he is. And once you get one to gobble, then it's game on. You can move in. You can feel his temperature. You can either cow call to him, or you can bugle at him, and he'll bugle back, and you make him mad, and you start raking a tree. You're trying to show, hey, I'm a good bull over here. Come on, cows, come on over here. And that bull just isn't going to take it anymore, and he's going to come in, and that's when hopefully you get a shot. So.
Okay, we got a question here actually from Jennifer Drake from Drake's Guiding Service here in Michigan. She's asking if you've noticed that using a calf call drives the bulls wild during the quiet spell. She uses that quite often here during the quiet time because they want to drive the calves off away from the cows.
Oh, that is, you know, I can't say that we've ever done that. Now, I try to mix in cow and calf, but I've never done just a calf. And that, you know, we may try that. But I have never personally done it. Normally, the scenarios that we've done is early season, right up until they start bugling, we'll go out and do a setup for 40 minutes where just, just like 3-4 cows are just talking to each other, and then you stay silent for a while, then you come back, and you build a crescendo, and what you're trying to do is mimic, here's a herd and they're talking, then they start getting excited, like, you know, it's pre-rut, they're feeling oatsy, but it's not quite breeding time yet, and then you really build it up over a period of 15 to 20 minutes. You build up this calling, and then you come in with a hyperlift. Like one of the cows actually starts what would be the same as like a doe bleeding for a buck. It's a real nasally, and a bull might come in, but he's going to come in silent. That's early season because the bulls are ready, but the cows usually aren't. But he hears that, and it builds up the excitement into it, where all of a sudden he's just like, I got to go check it out. And what I've heard is some guys at the end of all that, when the cow, then like a young bull, he's not sure if he's a spike with him, he's not sure what's going on, but he's excited. And that can also make an older bull think, hey, I am not going to let that spike have that. So that's when he'll come in, but they usually come in silent. Now, later on in the year, we'll go out, like when we get back up there, we're just going to switch gears. I mean, when the first few days we were up there, when Nick came into town, we were up there and we were doing cow calls and trying to locate them, get one to pipe off, and they're just not there yet. So when we go back up, we're going to make the commitment to bugle, 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 because they're getting so close to wanting to do that I think the natural tendency is going to be eventually one is going to, okay, and he screams back, we can locate him, move in close, and then do some cow call, rake a tree. You just got to almost take their temperature. And then from there, what do? Do you get aggressive? Do you get passive? And hopefully he makes a commitment to come in because you're threatening him. So.
Okay, you mentioned when you go back up. Do you have like a split season? I mean, you've got the early season now. When you go back, is your season over now for a period of time before you go back, or you just happen to come home?
No, I just happened to come home. I went up the first week, which the first week is usually just a lot of setups, cow calling, just trying to see if there's a bull interested, because eventually they start going out trying to gather their cows. And, hey, there's a cow over there. I'm going to go check her out. Okay. So the first week I was up there, then I came home for a week and did some work because I had to work. And then I went back up for a period of time during the third week. It was still warm temperature, and those first couple weeks, I'm usually hunting by myself. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I've got to not only get the animal, I've got to butcher the animal up, get it off the mountain, get it back down, get it in cooler, and before the meat goes bad. And that's a lot of work for one person. And I'm not a spring chicken anymore, so there just gets a point in your mind where if I kill it in the morning, at least I'm out there in the daylight. And if I kill it in the evening, now I'm out there in the middle of the woods all by myself with a flashlight trying to cut up an elk. And so I think to myself, is that something I really want to do at my age anyway? So all that comes into play.
Where you're at there, do you have to worry about predators like wolves, bear, or cougar up there when you're dressing out an elk?
Yeah. In fact, I've got a picture of a couple cougars on my trail cam. There's a ton of bears, not grizzly, but there are black bears, and some of them can be aggressive. There's a lot of bears up in that unit. It's a draw unit for bears, so there's a ton of bears, and there's wolves, and
So basically, you become part of the menu.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's one thing when you got somebody with you,
Right?
Then it's like, hey, all right. But when you're all by yourself, and it's just, and a lot of bad stuff can happen. I mean, a prime example, early season, I went and put up a tree stand because I found a smoking trail that the elk are using. They're coming up on a ridge. They're using the ridge for a while, then they're bailing off to go down into different drainages or draws for the day to bed down. And I'm sitting in a tree stand and I'm looking, I'm like, I need to open up that shooting lane. So I actually got down, and I think it was in the evening. I went back in for the evening, and I just was haphazard, and I had a really sharp boning saw, a Gerber, very aggressive. And then anyway, I was cutting a bunch of stuff, and I tried cutting the end of my thumb off. and of course, I cut right through the nail and just peeled it open. And so accidents can happen real fast, and it's a long way off that mountain. And so when you're by yourself, there's just stuff that can go wrong. So you take all that into consideration. You don't put yourself, hopefully, in situations where you can't get back to your machine, you can't get back to where camp is, and get yourself off the mountain if you need to. So, anyway.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're bumping up here on our first break. We come back, we'll talk a little more about the hunt. I want to dive into it a little more here. So we're going to step outside real quick. We take our first break. We come back. If you got any questions, go ahead and throw them out here, and we'll get them into Randy as well. So we'll be right back after this.
All right, folks, we got a couple questions lining up for Randy in the next segment. If you got any more, throw them out to us. We shall get them out there.
All right.
Alrighty. Here we go.
So some are wondering if we're interviewing Santa, Mark Coleman.
You should have seen me with a full beard. I shaved the beard off about 3 days ago. Up there, it's so dusty and dry that this white becomes very brown and almost like a whisk broom, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I've had a goatee forever, so I just got rid of all the rest of that and just went back to my goat. So.
There you go. No, it looks good, man.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Stand by in 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back. Second segment of the show. We're talking about elk hunting out in Idaho with Randy Stoppenhagen over at Better the Hunt.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, Randy, question for you from Mark Coleman. What type of scent do you use to either cover your scent or draw out the big boys?
Okay. Back in the day, so I didn't start hunting till I was 30 years old. My father didn't do it. I didn't do it. My cousins in Michigan, where I was born, got me involved with whitetail hunting, and then they're like, you're in a target-rich environment. You need to start hunting stuff out there. So the guys that helped me get into elk hunting about 25 years ago, we used to go out and we'd use Cowan estrus. It's made by, I can't think of the company. Anyway, we would literally spray ourselves down. I mean, our shirts, our pants, our boots.
You sprayed your body?
Hats. Oh yeah, spray our hat, because the thought was, I'm going to smell like a cow elk when I'm walking around, and you brush up against stuff, and you're leaving scent. But what we failed to realize was that product, within 2 days, turned to pure ammonia. So we were walking around like bottles of Clorox bleach. I mean, it was awful, you know, and plus my wife did not appreciate that in her washing machine when I came home. So
Okay,
then,
that's funny. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I know, it was terrible. But you don't know what you don't know. So anyway, so then years later, once we stopped spraying it all over ourselves, we started spraying it on bushes, like cow and heat, estrus. I mean, just like doe and heat. But I'm a firm believer. I mean, I'll spray myself down with scent killer, and I wash my clothes in no scent, and same with the beard and the goat, but we smell. And I don't think you are ever going to 100% eliminate your scent. I just don't think that's humanly possible. So, wind in your face, because I've been there where just for a split second that wind switches and you can feel it just on the back of your ear coming in from an angle, or you feel it on your back, on your neck, then it switches again. Those elk are gone. I mean, it's so you can only do so much. I don't put any cover scent out there anymore. I hunt in the wind. The wind's in my face. If it's not, we maneuver till I get the wind right. Because if the wind isn't right, you're not going to fool them. I mean, that's my opinion, whether that's right or wrong. So
You can't fool Mother Nature.
no.
You know, and hunting out west, I mean, where you guys are at, hunting in the mountains, you got thermals. The wind shifts so much, going uphill, downhill, depending on the time of day, morning or evening. That's what makes it hunting so hard. I mean, their noses are so huge, just like a deer's nose. They've got so many receptors in their nose. You're not going to fool them, so you got to use the wind. And that wind, the way it moves out there with thermals, that's why elk hunting is so doggone hard. I gotta imagine.
Yeah, I mean, they get big for a reason. I mean, a lot of spikes die, just like, you know, spike bucks and younger bucks. Prime example, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I was in my tree, no, I was in a hammock seat clipped to a tree. And here comes a cow elk, and she's 20 yards away, and she steps right out to where I was standing. Now, the boots that I use, I purchased them, I sprayed them down. They only go on my feet when I go out to hunt. Other than that, they've never touched pavement, any of that stuff. So she stood right there, put her nose to the ground, looked around, and the wind's blowing right up in my face. She turns around, goes down the hill 25 yards, cuts through the brush. The spike walks perfectly broadside, stood there 20 yards, could have killed him, and like he wasn't interested in what was on the ground like she was. He just wanted to be with her, so he turned around, went down the hill. About 2 minutes later, out comes a raghorn, like a 2x3 or a 3x4, whatever. He comes out, gets right there. He follows that cow. Nose wasn't to the ground, but he follows that cow. And then I heard crunch, crunch, crunch. Heard a bunch of cows mewing. And I had a little bit of a knoll off to my right. And I figured the elk were all going to use the trail, except for the two that came in behind me. And one was a spike. And he walked right through my wind. And he was so out of this. I mean, he just wasn't thinking. He walked right through my wind, didn't affect him at all. And here came the big one right behind him, which he was letting the little one lead the way and take the arrow. And then he stepped out. Well, I could see in my vision the spike over here eating a bush. I saw the big one. I saw the spot I had to draw. The bull got to that spot. I drew. The spike saw my movement. He locked up. Then the big bull locked up. And they're both 15, 20 yards away from me. And the spike ran back and ran into the big bull. They both turned around behind the knoll I saw cow, spike, big bull, cow. So, I mean, there were a bunch of elk over there. Who would ever thought they would have done what they did? But that's hunting. So a younger animal, you might get away with it, but an older, mature one, they're always checking wind. I mean, they're always looking. So, anyway.
No, that's a lesson learned, and it's a good testament to playing the wind, right? You can't outsmart them. They're gonna find something. Like you said, you were using a pair of boots that only were for one use only, to put on your feet and stay in the woods with those boots. But yet she picked up on it and said, okay, I got a problem here.
Yeah, she did not like it. And right now, those elk, up in that tree, I could have killed a bunch of cows by now. I mean, I've had cows all around me.
What's your tag for?
Bull or cow.
Okay.
Any elk. But I have these trails cameras out, and I've had them out since June. And, there's some studs walking around. Just incredible looking elk. And so earlier in the year, you go, but now, this time of year, you're going, yeah. If a cow walks out in front of me tomorrow morning, she's going to be in trouble. Because we love the meat. My wife and my daughter, the whole family loves elk meat, and really any meat we get, deer. So I've been in a little bit of a dry spell. I don't know what it is, but it's been a couple years. We were getting one every year, either 50% success or 100% success, but I've hit a wall the last couple years, and I don't know what it is, so I'm anxious to put some more elk meat in the freezer. Luckily, my buddy Nick with Full Range, I called one in last year, and he put a good shot on it, and he was kind enough to share some of that meat, and then he took the rest back home to North Carolina. So we did have some elk meat in the freezer, so that was good.
Courtesy of a friend.
Yes, courtesy of a good friend.
There you go. Now tomorrow, starting tomorrow, when you're back heading for the mountain, the game has changed.
In fact, we're actually going back up tonight. We'll get up there late, but we're going to get back up there so we've got 7 more days to get it done.
And that's when your season's over, or you have to come back down off the mountain at that point?
No, September 30th is the end of archery season. Now in October, because Idaho has an A tag and a B tag, and then they have different zones. Like I'm in this zone. I'm not telling you what zone I'm in. And then there's all these different zones. So you have to select the zone you want to hunt, and then there's an A tag, which is archery rich, and then there's a B tag, which is rifle rich. So you have to choose which one you want. Well, my A tag is good from August 30th to September 30th. And then I can go back up in the middle of October for a 10-day period where you can shoot a cow with any weapon, rifle, muzzleloader, bow, whatever you want to do. So if I'm not successful, I hope I am during archery, but if not, then I'll go back up, maybe, if I got time, in October and try to get one then.
Danny, we were that close.
We were that close to that sacred section.
Almost told us. That close.
That close.
Hey,
I'll tell you when the podcast is over.
There you go. Hey, when you get a good spot, you just don't want to let everybody know. You know what I'm saying?
Speaking of that, question for you. Question is, Mark Coleman has never had elk meat, but he hears it's delicious, and Jennifer Drake agrees elk is the best for sure. What is your favorite cut of elk?
The tenderloins are incredible. They're so, and they're big. I mean, they're a tenderloin and an elk, might be this big, and it is so tender. Now, and second would be the back straps, which are
ginormous,
huge. Yeah,
right.
And then of course, a lot of the roasts in the back. But what I tend to do is cut the back straps into steaks, tenderloin, maybe 1 or 2 roasts or something like that, or steaks out of the hind quarter, and then I grind the rest.
So do you have the tenderloins like that night over the campfire?
Well, that's what I should start doing because my wife is notorious for eating the tenderloins. I'll usually, that's no kidding. I mean, when we were on a record of getting out, I'd take it to the take it to the meat processor. It'd take a week or two. So it'd be mid-October. Well, then I might leave to go whitetail hunting or mule deer hunting. And then in November, and then finally when I get around to it, I'm like, hey, let's have some elk tenderloin. She's like, they're really good with butter.
Already gone.
And they're gone.
That is.
But that's okay. She allows me to go, so that's an even trade.
She's like, yeah, we'll have next year when you go get another one.
You're gonna have to start. You're gonna have to start to tell her that the new type of elk that is happening after this COVID has no tenderloins when they arrive back at home.
Or at least do one up at camp and then bring the other one home.
Oh, there you go. That's fair.
Yeah, there you go.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. You know, it's one of those things. And it's one of those things. You got till the 30th. I hope the weather works out for you because I know weather can definitely be a challenge in the mountains. How's that looking?
Well, tomorrow's supposed to be cool. There was a cold front that came through, and then it's gonna warm back up into the mid 70s down in the valley, but up on the mountain there's about a 4,000 to 5,000 foot elevation change, so it's usually 10 degrees cooler up there. So it'll be good. Nature's going to do what nature's going to do. The moon's going to do what it's going to do. All we can do is get out there, cover as much country, bugle, wind in your face, and everything else. It's elk hunting. I mean, they are where they are. You got to find them. You got to play the game right. You can do everything right, and then it comes down to that last second, and the wind changes, or you step on a little twig and snap, and it doesn't work out. So, but it's the rush, and it's the thinking and strategizing and the camaraderie and going out there and playing the game that's the exciting part of it. So,
Have you had any weather affected by other things? Like I know Paul last week, he was up elk hunting in Colorado, and he was getting the smoke from the forest fires from further west. I know Dudley was out elk hunting, and he was helping out put forest fires. But have you had like stuff like that around you that's affecting your hunting or anything like that, like from forest fires or nature itself?
Yeah. This year there's a lot of fires in Oregon, and of course the wind comes out of the west, heads east, and we were covered in smoke the first couple weeks of the season. Now with the cold front, the thermals or the predominant winds change. They'll come out of the northwest, which then pushes the smoke down like by Utah. So like right now, it's beautiful blue sky. The winds are out of the northwest, so it's good. But that wind switches out of the west or even out of the southwest. It's back in. I mean, the smoke rolls back in. And you ask if that affects anything. Last year, I was set. We had elk camp set up. I was ready to go, and then I had a heart issue the night before opening day. So I drove myself off the mountain. And luckily it wasn't anything serious. And then the plan was to go up in the middle of the month. Well, a fire started about the 10th or so on the side of that mountain. And it ended up, I got a phone call about the middle of the month you better get your camper out of there. So we ran up there and got the camper out and got everything, got the trail cameras down, got the tree stands down. And luckily the fire stopped about a mile from where camp is. So a lot of that mountain got burnt. So it also, until the vegetation comes back, some elk, very few, might go in there and bed down, but there's no cover. I mean, it's just a bunch of black sticks and moon dust. So it changes. Hey, let's go to, no, we can't go there, that's burnt. Well, what about, let's go over here? You have places, and you give them nicknames like this two bear or the North Pole or over here. You know, you just give them different names other than what's on the map. But those
He's not gonna tell us.
places are no, those places are burnt. Those places are burnt now. Well, we have one place we call Sugar Bridges, and I don't need to go into that. But anyway, so you know, you just yeah, I know. Anyway, so there's just places that you can't go to anymore because it's roached. I mean, there's nothing left.
Well, it burns it.
But you got to think, too, looking ahead, though, when those places get burnt, a couple, 2-3 years, it's going to be phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it will be. The vegetation will come back. The deadfall. The state and the feds are doing a lot of reclamation. They're salvaging what they can, and then they'll replant it, and then they'll harvest trees. It helps with money for the schools. So anyway, it'll come back. It may not be in my lifetime, but there's still places to go hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So in one way, it forced those animals to a more specific spot. But also what it's done is it forced all the hunters into specific spots.
Right.
So instead of maybe 40 square miles to hunt, you're now down to 20.
Yeah, you're putting more hunting pressure on a smaller area, so.
Right, exactly. And Tony Arnold says, 54 is going to be Friday night in Ohio, so he has the C3 mitt on and ready for Saturday morning, which makes it the Ohio archery opener.
There you go.
Good deal. Good deal.
We're going to talk a little bit about the mitts here in just a few minutes.
And one last question. Do you have a special... are you hunting public or private land?
Public.
Okay, do you need permission to hang a stand or put up a trail camera or anything on public out there?
No.
Okay.
Not yet, and hopefully not at all.
Right. So there you go, Mark.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, we're going to take a quick break. We come back. We'll continue the conversation. I got a couple little questions here I want to ask you about the elk hunt, and then we'll slowly start to transition into some things with C3 and the mitts as well. So we're going to step outside, and we'll be right back after this message. All right, folks.
Mark Coleman, that was going to be my next question. That's funny. Not going to lie. When you come back, switch over to my screen.
All right. 1 second here. We'll be ready to rock. All right. Here we go. Stand by in 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back, third segment of the show. And before we get going too far, we want to give a quick shout out to FM 123 in Newberry, up in northern Michigan, who carries our show. Danny, what do you got there from Newberry tonight?
I've got it's 46 degrees up in Newberry right now in the Upper Peninsula.
Nice.
And there's a side-by-side on the sidewalk.
Yeah, and no snow yet.
Well, not yet. But anyways, yeah, get over to Cedars, get a pizza, and get some Deer Camp coffee while you're up there.
There you go. Thanks to FM 123 once again for carrying the show. So, back at the beginning of the show, maybe it was before we started, I can't remember which rain we were talking, and we talked about how much rain we've got here, and you said you like a little bit of that moisture out there. What specifically, dry conditions, how does that affect your elk hunting out there? What does it do?
Well, one, you perspire more, so you want to keep your hygiene, either towel off, no scent towels, try to keep your scent under control that way. Two, when you're out there walking along, it's crunch, crunch, crunch. It's like walking on potato chips.
Mm-hmm.
I did get a storm up there, I think the second week or the second time I went up there. I got rain overnight, and it was awesome. Walking through the woods, quiet as a church mouse. But within days, it's right back to crunch, 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 crunch. So elk make noise when they walk through the woods. So I try to mimic that, step, 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 stop, step, 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 stop. And if I step on something like a stick or a twig, I'll just, like I'm a cow. So if there is an elk 70 yards away and he hears that break, I cow call, and it hopefully will calm them down. They don't freak out, like, what is that, you know? So,
Makes sense.
but
That makes sense.
other than that, the dry, because of the dust, it's just, you know, your equipment gets dusty, your boat gets dusty, your pack gets dusty. Drink lots of water, lots of water.
So it's more for the hunting conditions for you, for being able to get around it. It's not so much for the elk themselves.
No, I mean, but when it was early season, if you can find water, because they have to water, and I mean, elk can go a long ways in a short amount of time, but you know, they're lazy, like all of us are, and if they're not pressured, why walk 6 miles to water when you can walk 600 yards? I mean, so you hunt around water sources, wallows, somewhere where they can get access to get water. So, but then once the rut comes, I mean, you just find them where you find them. Now, they do have bedrooms where, you know, that's where they like to breed, and that's where they bred before, and there's two different theories of thought, and I am not an expert, but all the years that I've hunted, there's two different theories. One is the cow is dictating where they're going. The other one is the bull is dictating where they're going. That's why he pushes them here, pushes them there. But a lead cow is one of the smartest animals you will ever find. I mean, she is smart. I've seen it, because when we started learning how to cow call and get elk coming, we watched two bulls come down off a hill, and that cow was out in front of them with her head, trying to steer them away, because she realized that's not a real cow, and yet they were so jazzed up about, oh, we got to get over to those cows. I mean, it was interesting to watch that. We didn't kill either one of them, but she was dead set on trying to steer them away from coming to us. And so there's just a lot that you know, and the dry season with the dust and the crunching, and that just makes it tough. I mean, I wish we could get some rain. But conversely, a weather pattern change like that really screws them up for a few days. I mean, all of a sudden they won't talk and they won't move around very much because their smells have changed. The trails don't have scent on them anymore, and they don't feel like moving around because everything's different. So,
Well, looking at people that maybe they want to come from out east and head that way and hunt up in the mountains. I mean, you're from Michigan. You know, we don't have mountains here, number one. But for somebody coming out there, and maybe it's their first trip, maybe it's their second or third trip, and they haven't had any success yet. You know, what is one of the things that you could tell somebody to kind of, that maybe they haven't thought of, a lot of people from out east haven't thought about, that would give them just a little bit of insight as something that they need to do or something they need to bring or think about when they come out there?
I guess things to do is get your legs in shape. I mean, you could be on a Stairmaster and you can walk a lot, but nothing prepares you for going after an elk up a hill. Your lungs will burn. You drag yourself back to camp. You roll out of bed. You're sore, and you get to do it all over again the next day.
What elevation are you hunting at?
I'm at about 6,400 feet, and I live down at 2,500 feet elevation. So, but for somebody back east that's at sea level, I mean, that's a drastic change. There isn't near as much oxygen as there is at sea level. So.
What about for you making that change of 4,000 feet? Is that something you're used to, or before the season you have to start getting your legs back in shape and getting your lungs accustomed to that?
Well, I think part of it is you get your mountain legs under you. You get out there, and after 3 or 4 days, all of a sudden your legs are getting, used to it.
Mm-hmm.
I got on the program earlier this year and lost 50 pounds, which was just good all around for me. but it's a huge difference. I mean, 50 pounds, it's like putting on 50 pounds on your back and walking around.
Yep.
So to not have that, it's really enjoyable. And just the better in shape you can be, the more enjoyable your hunt will be because you'll be able to do more stuff. A good pair of boots, something that's really comfortable, very supportive, because you're going to cover a lot of country. And I would say have a good pack, one that is versatile. It'll hold your gear, but it'll also pack an elk quarter out. It'll expand and accept that quarter. There's several good ones out there on the market.
Right, because like you said, you're going to cut them up there and pack them back to the trailer, right?
Right. Yeah. You don't drag that back. You don't drag in that. Well, I mean, you might be able to a spike, but even a spike is. So you quarter it, you put it in game bags, you get it cooled down, and then you usually take your bow and, like my pack, I'll get all the extra stuff that I don't need in it out of it, and then I go back in there and my pack, I have it, butterflies open, then I'll put a quarter in there, strap it down, put it on my back, walk out, and then if there's two of you, it's usually 3 trips, because each one takes a hind quarter, then each one takes a front quarter. I mean, you might be able to do it in 2, but you got if it's a nice bull, you got the cape and the head, so that's 1 trip for one guy. Each one of you are taking a quarter, so that's another trip. And then you got the front shoulders, the back straps, and the tenderloins, and all the other trims of meat. So it's usually a 3-timer deal to get one out. So
You think that's something that a lot of people that don't hunt elk on a regular basis, you think that's something they really don't take into account, or maybe misjudge, is how hard it is to get it out and how many trips they actually have to make?
Yeah, and it depends on how far you go. Now, there's been a few elk that myself and my hunting partner Matthew have gotten where, we got the machine real close, so it wasn't that hard. But there was one time where he shot a really big cow, and I mean, it was 360 pounds of meat, and yet it was still on the bone when we carried it out. And I mean, it was not pleasant. So, and yet I haven't done hey, we were 7 miles back, and I mean, so you really need to be honest with yourself about the condition you're in, how far you're willing to pack that out, because you need to give that animal that respect. I mean, if you're, just because you can go in there 7 miles, you need to really think of the whole picture. Mm-hmm. And hey, if you're not able to do that, I mean, there's a lot of elk that are just, off the road. A couple of years ago, we pulled the machine up, shut it off, got our packs out real quiet, got our bows. We walked 30 yards in on this old logging road, and a whole herd of elk stood up. Right up the road.
Nice.
And we had no clue. I mean, who would have ever thought? But yet, think about it. I mean, they could watch traffic go by. They could see where hunters were going. And the big bull was with those cows. And all of a sudden, one cow stood up, then 2 or 3 more, then a couple more. And then all of a sudden, that bull stood up. And, I mean, by that time, we were trying to get, an arrow off. But they all started scattering, and that bull was screaming, and he gathered his cows up, and up the hill he went, and it was a total surprise. Who would have ever thought that bull was going to be there? So, anyway, I mean, like I said, elk are where elk are at. So.
That's right. That's hunting, right?
Yeah, that's hunting.
Well, looking at packing out, we got a question here. Mark Cohn wants to know, is like, what's your sequence of order of items to take out first, second, third, and leave to last?
Well, if it's, okay, let's say you're back in far enough that you gotta, you gotta get the meat cooled down. Now, if it's really warm, I am going to take the meat right off the bone, because if it's real warm, you can get what's called bone sour, because they're big bones, and it starts leaching a chemical and it'll spoil the meat. So if it's only going to be like 65 overnight or 70, I'll get the hide off because you're starting to cool it down. But then as I'm working that hindquarter, I will literally cut all the meat off and put it in a bag so there's no bone on any of it. And then I'll bone the whole animal out right there as it lays. Then I'll get those bags hung up. And if it's a worthy bull, someone will take the head and the cape, and then somebody else gets the back straps, the tenderloins. Then the other 4 quarters are hanging there up in a tree, and you're sweaty doing all that, even though it might be nighttime and it's cool and there's a breeze. It's a lot of work and you get sweaty. So what I do is I'll take my shirt off, which is covered in human scent, and I'll drape that next to the game bags as a deterrent to keep a cougar or a bear. He'll smell that, and hopefully he'll stay away. And then, so you take that out, and then if you got time, you go back in and you take the next heaviest thing, which I always take the hindquarters because that's usually the worst trim. And then the last one's the easiest with the front shoulders and any other trim you might have, and then you're out of there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan that you're going to be executing within the next week.
I hope so. But what's really fun is when you get 2 down in a span of 10 minutes. Then you think you got some work to do. You have no clue. That happened to me years ago with a cousin. We both shot bulls about 50 yards apart, and both the bulls died about 40 yards apart on the hillside. That's a lot of work.
And you're like, uh-oh, now we really got our work cut out for us.
Yeah, and the cool thing is it was the last day. It was the last morning, and it was so magical. We got to a spot, and all of a sudden we heard bugling, and this herd bull was bringing a whole herd up the hill, and we just got in the right position, and the big herd bull cows came up the hill flying past us, and the herd bull went flying past us to try to corral them. And in the meantime, all these other elk were all over in front of us, and a spike, and my cousin ended up shooting a raghorn, and then a 5x6, the one right there, came in front of me at about 15 steps, and I shot him, and we went over to look at mine first, and we were high-fiving, and then we went over to where he shot, and went out, found some blood, and went around the bush, and there's his laid. And if we just would have looked when we were at mine, his was laying 40 yards down the hill, but we never saw it.
Jeez. Then, like you said, your work was cut out for you for the next several hours.
Yes, yeah, it was a lot of work. It was a long day.
That's awesome.
I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and put our plan together and take a break. We come back, we want to talk about Better the Hunt's C3 mitts and the switch over with the naming and get a little insight into that. So we're going to step outside real quick, take our last break, and we'll be right back after this.
All right, folks, last segment of the show coming up. We're going to be talking about Better the Hunt and why they went to C3 mitts.
All right, save this section off. And got what you need there, Randy?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Okay, all right. Here we go. 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back. Last segment of the show, and we'd be a little bit remiss if we didn't talk about the product that you have let us use here, and talk a little bit about the name change here this season. We've talked about Better the Hunt, but you have taken the name and switched it to C3. Talk a little bit about that change and why you did it.
Well, I did not come from the hunting industry. I have a separate company that I've done for 28 years. So you don't know what you don't know. And when I started the company, or when I came out with the insulated bow mitt, that was the name of it. But before that name, it was actually named something else because I got involved with the company. Well, that didn't work out, so I ended up having to take the product myself and learn how to make a hang tag, find a manufacturer, and I had to learn it all on the job, as on the fly. So I came up with the name Better the Hunt, and then I was like, well, what am I going to name it? Well, it's insulated, and it's a bow mitt. It fits around the bow. It's a mitt. Okay, that's what we're going to call it. Was I happy with that? No, but it was descriptive, just like it's got 200 grams of thinsulate, or it's got, the buckles on the front of it. You put your hand in it, keep your hand warm, so you can shoot with the same bare hand. So anyway, I was never really happy with that. Well, this year, beginning of this year, which is now the 5th year of my company, every year we've done better and better and better, but I just knew we needed to do something else. So my friend Nick from North Carolina, who owns Full Range Hanging System, he's with Rubline Marketing, and he suggested that I give him a call. So that's what they do. They're in the hunting industry. They help with marketing and social media for companies like me to get us to the next level and to get it out to more people. Because I think, okay, I spent 4 years and a lot of money. Oh, everybody must know about it. Well, I mean, it's amazing. Even here in Idaho, where I live, my friend Matthew went out to the archery range, and he shoots with the mitt on. He always has. He never takes it off. And everybody there was just flabbergasted. What's that on your bow? So I haven't reached hardly anybody yet. So bringing Rubline on was a big deal. And the first thing, they looked at the whole view of the company, and they realized, okay, you've got Better the Hunt, and then you've got the insulated bow mitt. There's confusion there because what's Better the Hunt? And even people out here, because my truck's logoed up, they were like, are you an outfitter? And I'm like, no, I have a hunting product. Oh, what's that? And then I explained what the hunting product was. So there's this disconnect. And the insulated bow mitt is descriptive of what it is, but it doesn't explain the benefits. So we sat down for 3-4 months, and we went through names, and we needed something that was to the point and descriptive of the product. Thus the name C3 mitts. And C3 stands for comfort, control, confidence. You're going to have comfort when you're out there, whether it be against mosquitoes or the colder weather or rainy weather. Your hand's going to stay nice and dry. The same palm that you practice with during the summer is going to be against that bow when it's minus 10 or 20. Or like even in the mornings when we elk hunt, it's 38, 42 degrees. That's cold. And when you're not used to it, and yet we're all walking around with a bare hand holding our bow. So when the moment comes, we're shooting with a bare hand. So, and the control is because I'm not having to rip off a glove. I'm using the same bare hand. I have control of my weapon. And now that we have a set of mitts for a rifle, and a set of mitts for a shotgun, and a set of mitts for a crossbow, and I'll get into the crossbow in a second, but now you're using the same bare hands that you've practiced with all summer. So you have the most control that you'd ever have on your weapon. And then finally, confidence. And the confidence comes from the other two things. You're not having to think, when do I rip my glove off? When do I get my hands out of my pocket? When do I grab my bow off the hook? Because those first couple hours in the morning, last couple hours at night, because I whitetail hunt up north, I'm going to be holding my bow. I don't want it hung, because it can happen that fast. We've all been there. Mm-hmm. And when that deer runs out, you're looking at the deer, and you're looking up at your bow, and you're looking at the deer, and you're looking at the bow, and you're trying to get the bow off the hook. I'm sitting there just like this, and when the moment comes, all I got to do is do this. I'm not doing all this other stuff. And it's one less thing that can go wrong. because there's so many other things that can go wrong. I've just eliminated 3 or 4 things.
Right.
But what the crossbow mitt does, if you're taking a youth out there, and it's happened to a lot of adults, you grab your crossbow, like this one right here, and you're so concentrating, looking through the scope, that you get what's called finger creep. And before you know it, you're adjusting your grip and you're really concentrating, and your finger or your thumb gets above the finger guard by accident.
Mm-hmm.
And you end up taking part of your finger off. And what that mitt does is the minute that mitt is attached underneath the crossbow, there is no way you can get your fingers up in harm's way. So whether you're taking a youth out there or you're going out with yourself or it's your spouse, and you can concentrate on, okay, he's turning left, get ready to take the shot. You're not having to look over there and, as an adult, and worry about where your kid's fingers are, or your spouse, or even yourself. Mm-hmm. You can concentrate on the shot, which is the most important thing, instead of worrying about where your fingers are with a crossbow. So all those mitts, the heaviest one, which is the rifle mitt, which is this one right here, because of everything, and there goes the shotgun. Because of everything that's on it, it's got a strap that you can put around your bicep as a third anchor point, but it also has the cartridge holder and the EVA mold on the top, so that it sits right up against the barrel of the rifle under the scope. This one comes in at 7 ounces, but the bow mitt is only 5 ounces, and some of them are only 4 point some ounces. But they're weatherproof, they're windproof, they're water resistant or waterproof, and there's a hanging hand warmer pocket inside. If it's bitter cold, you can activate a hand warmer, it's not going to fall out. But now I can sit there, and when the moment comes, I'm shooting with the same bare hands that I practiced with during the summer. And that means I'm going to have a confident shot. So there you go.
Yeah, and I like the fact that, it becomes a safety feature as well on the crossbows.
Right, exactly. And that's a big deal, considering, a lot of states have made that legal now during archery season, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. And I'm one of those guys, just get out in the woods.
Yep.
I mean, and that's great. Whatever weapon, just get out and have fun and be a hunter. That's go. Okay, so whether it's a crossbow, a lot of people picked up a crossbow, and that's great. But a lot of people have just made mistakes where they're putting their fingers, and it's resulted in a lot of really awful photographs. So, and a lot of trips to the ER. So that's one of the huge benefits, not only the warmth that the mitt provides, but also the huge safety benefits. So we're proud of our line. It's really well made. A lot of thought's gone into it. And then the multi-mitt, real quick. This, for those people that already have a bow mitt or a rifle mitt, we made this mitt, and I know a lot of people are like, hey, it looks like an oven mitt. And I'm like, yeah, and your grandma bought one. So anyway, what this is, as a bow hunter, I put it on my wrist. And then I rotate my hand inside. There's a hanging hand warmer pocket. My release is in there. So if it's snowing real hard, it was 38, now it's 28. My release isn't going to freeze up. But when the moment comes, my hand rotates right out. It's out of the way. And I'm not fumbling with gloves. I'm not trying to dig my release out. It's all right there with the bow mitt. And then the elastic can either go around your wrist when you're bow hunting, or it can even go around your belt loop, but it goes on the back of the stock of your gun. That's why it's called the multi-mitt. So I can sit there with my hand in the front mitt, the rifle mitt, and I can sit here with my hand in the multi-mitt, no more gloves. And yet when the moment comes, it just comes out, hangs there, and I take the shot. And then I rotate my hand back in.
Looking ahead, look at the multi-mitt. You could market that towards people outside, maybe at a football game, especially in the northern climates, sitting outside watching a football game in the late season. outdoor hockey rinks, anything to do with the outdoors. I can think of probably a dozen different things that somebody could use that for. Have you thought about maybe not even just marketing it to not just the hunter or outdoorsman, but to other people as well?
I've done Christmas shows here in Idaho, and I've had a lot of wives, even husbands, buy them. A lot of them clip them to their strollers. A lot of them, like you said, take them to football games because you got big bulky gloves on. You're trying to grab your drink. Well, now you can have your hands in those. Your hands can come out immediately. You're clapping a lot louder like this than with gloves on. Then you rotate your hands back inside. You need to get to your phone real quick. I mean, they're very handy. A charter fisherman on the West Coast, they were interested in them, and they bought some to put on their charter boat, and they clipped the elastic band around the rail of the boat so the fishermen can sit there with their hands in there. Then when it's fish on, they bring their hands out, reel for a while. If they have to, they can put their hand back in to warm it up because it's cold out there in the ocean. So yeah, there's a lot of uses for that multi-mitt. That's why we call it a multi-mitt. In fact, the bow mitt, if somebody really wanted to, you can order a left and right bow mitt, and they fit right on a snowmobile. They fit on a four-wheeler on the handlebars. You can still run the brake. Then when you get to where you want to go, you take the one off you need, you put it on your weapon, you go hunt. So, yeah, this is a real fun time in Better the Hunt Technologies life, and we're looking forward to the future.
Randy, you were showing them there on the screen to the audience there, and you had a black one and a beige one. But do you have any other colors that they come in besides those?
The rifle mitt, the shotgun mitt, the crossbow mitt, and the multi-mitt come in earth brown or tactical black. The bow mitts come in camouflage. They come in mossy oak tree stand, mossy oak breakup country, and trees and camo. And eventually the bow mitts will be made in earth brown and tactical black. And then eventually we're going to add a third color, which is Loden green, which it looks, I'm going to call it leaf shadow green. It's a beautiful color. So whether you are a shotgun hunter and you want a brown shotgun mitt to fit on there, I wanted to go with neutral colors. And part of the reason is I'd go to shows. Well, don't you have Sitka? Don't you have Cryptic? Don't you have Real Tree? Don't you have... I'm not at the point yet where I can make mitts in 50 different varieties. And so I went with neutral colors that look good, conceal, look like the environment. Like out in the elk woods, black would be great because there's a lot of dark shadows, a lot of dark timber. The earth brown would look good up in the tree or out in the desert, and then the Loden green will look good up in a shaded tree in the early season. So I think that'll appeal to even a bigger audience, and it'll allow them to be more versatile. A lot of bows are black, a lot of bows are tan color or green color. Rifles are black. So and the rifle mitt and the shotgun mitt, that's the specific purpose for it, but a shotgun mitt will also fit on an AR, as well as a rifle mitt will fit on an AR, and they'll both fit on a muzzleloader, because muzzleloaders usually late season. So if anybody has any questions, they can go to the website, which you can get to the website by either c3mitts.com or betterthehunt.com. Either way, you can get to the website, and there's videos. We got some stuff coming up, but to your audience, from now till October 1st, use promo code capital U, small p, 20, and they can save 20% off of any mitts.
There you go, folks. For the next week.
There you go, Mark Coleman. You want to get one for your crossbow? There you go. He also asked, at this point, can you personalize the mitts with a company logo or maybe his favorite sports team?
My manufacturer has a minimum. So if he wanted to talk to me, I mean, you could take it to your own embroiderer, but if he wanted like a company logo on it, there's a minimum order right now of $450 in order to have the factory put the logo on, like Better the Hunt is on there currently. The next gen, or the next time I order, then the C3 Mitt logo is going to be on there, and possibly the Better the Hunt Technologies might be on there smaller. I don't know.
Right, exactly. And that's one thing we want to point out to the people. We were talking about this just before the show. Just touch on that briefly about because of COVID and the manufacturing, what's going on with that.
Well, I mean, we're going to have a lot of great sales coming out, and we're going to have different promos, just like we've got a promo with you right now. But because of what's gone on in the last couple of years in the world, I mean, there's a shortage, whether it's the buckles for the mitt, for the bow mitt, or it's the stitching, or it's the silica dots. It's hard to see, but there's actually grippy silica dots on this multi-mitt. So you can actually grip a water bottle. I mean, it actually helps grip stuff. Manufacturers are having trouble, or it's the thinsulate inside. I mean, there was a period where you couldn't find thinsulate. So we're having trouble getting stuff manufactured. Well, I have inventory, but I only have so much inventory. And when that inventory's gone for this year, it's just gone. And I will get more, but it's just the nature of the beast right now. I mean, I'm sure you've gone into stores, and I mean, you go into a grocery store, and it's like, how come they don't have any lasagna noodles? They should have lasagna noodles. Why? There's a reason. There's a hiccup somewhere in the system. Or you go into a sporting goods store like Sportsman's Warehouse or Cabela's, and they've got some stuff, but there's some stuff missing. That's not because the company's gone out of business. It's because they're having trouble getting their stuff manufactured. And we're doing everything we can on our end, but I just want to let people know that there's only so much. And when that's gone this year, it's going to be gone. So,
yep.
Anyway.
So, anyways, how about we get everybody to buy in and take out his inventory for the rest of the year and make him happy, so he can be a happy Santa,
so he can go hunting.
Yeah. No, what I'll do is that goes right back into inventory, and I'm putting the numbers together already, you know, and then the sooner I can get that order in, the sooner everything. And I understand my product is somewhat seasonal. Usually, end of August, first part of September, the sales build up, and then you get into October and it really takes off, and then November's crazy, and December and January and February, and then, I mean, it's like buying a swimsuit. I mean, they look awesome in December, and I love that. That looks great, but I'm going to wait and get it in June. Well, if you wait too long, they're all gone.
Right.
So it's the same thing here. Yeah, it's the same thing here. And we, as the manufacturers of the product, we try to time everything, because the last thing we want is out of stock, out of stock, out of stock. But part of it too is, you know, you talk to your factory and, hey, we just don't have this right now, and when are you going to get it? I don't know.
You love that answer, don't you? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, that's
right?
great. So, yeah.
Right, helps you out. But yeah, so everybody get over to C3 Mitts, use the promo code capital U, P, lowercase, and then 20, and you'll get 20% off your order.
Between now and October 1st.
Yep, and we have priority shipping. It costs a little bit more money, but you get it right away. And there's a tracking number, and it's insured, and it's the way to go. And we've been very successful with them, so that's how we ship everything out. So
there you go.
Get them now, folks, before they're gone. And save yourself 20%.
Right, exactly.
So there you go.
there you go.
Gotta like that. I'll tell you what, we're wrapping up here on the end of the show. You said you got something for it?
Well, I just want to show people this.
Okay.
The bow mitt especially. As you can see, there's 3 straps to the bow mitt. All those straps go around the front of the bow. I've seen, you know, some people that run the one strap around the back, and if that works for you, great. But I've done a lot of videos on it. I mean, the bow mitt, you just unclip it, open it up, put it around the grip of the bow, then all 3 straps come around the front of the bow and buckle back up, and then you adjust it for your hand size and the way you grip your bow. Open finger, closed, side finger. The mitt's adjustable. But I just wanted to throw that out there. And there's videos on the website. There's all sorts of information on there, and even my phone number is there. So if you want, you can call me. I'll talk you through it. But thousands of people have used it, and everybody loves it. I've never had any returns. So.
Yeah, I think on your website you've got the video that shows you how to put it on, right?
Yes. Yep.
So there you go. And I think that's through YouTube too. So you could YouTube Better the Hunt as well, and you can check it out. Watch the video, show how to put it on, and it's all good.
There you go. And his phone number, give him a call. He might even give you the place where he's hunting. Nah, he's not going to do that.
Let's try.
I'll tell you what, thanks for spending a little over an hour with us tonight and going through your hunt, and especially the new C3 mitts. And good luck to you next week when you get back up there. We want to see some pictures of Big Bull Elk down.
Okay, I will. And Danny and Mike, I appreciate the time you've given me, and I love talking about elk hunting, and I appreciate you letting me talk about the product. And I just appreciate you guys and everything you do. So.
And we appreciate your wife on her birthday letting you talk to us.
I know.
I'm surprised she hasn't come in behind you, and hurried you along.
She's outside. She's outside. She knows that, and she'd be a distraction. So she goes, I'm going outside, have fun. No, but she's a great gal. I love her dearly, and she allows me to follow my dream with Better the Hunt Industries, the C3 Met line, and she allows me to go out and chase the animals. And she does come up, and she goes out in the woods with me once in a while, and it's always fun having her out there. And
yeah, that's awesome.
I love her dearly, and I want to wish her a happy birthday.
Hey, you know what? From all of us and all of our listeners, we want to wish her a happy birthday as well.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I tell you what,
awesome.
Stay with us.
Yeah, stay with us after the show here. We'll talk just for a quick sec, but we're going to go ahead and wrap up. For those of you listening on the podcast, make sure you go over to, if you're listening on iTunes, go over and give us a review. That helps us, helps the people who support us, just like Better the Hunt. And also for those of you that are watching the show, go over to their website, go over to their social media, give them a like, follow, share. Do the same for us as well. Share the show. That helps get the good word out about the people that we're associated with, and it helps us in return as well. Next week, Danny, you're going to be up north?
Nope. Next week we've got it'll be the 30th of September.
Okay, that's right.
And we'll have Joe Okada on.
Oh, that's right.
Talking about the championship coming up in October.
Okay, and that's the head-to-head championship over in New York?
Yeah, New York.
Okay, so that's for the professional walleye guys from Yamaha. So make sure you tune in next week, same time, next Thursday night, 7:30. We'll be back again then, and we want to thank everybody for watching the show tonight. And like I said, hang on real quick, if you would, Randy, and we'll talk after the show here. That'll do it for us this week, folks. We'll see you next week.